My name is Chris Jackson. I am currently an attorney, and I have been for about 4 or 5 years. I grew up here in Southern California. My dad was a metal worker. He owned his own business, and my mother, when I was a real little kid, she worked in grocery stores, but around 5 or so, if I remember correctly, she became a surrogate. And then a few years she did it again. And ever since then, she has worked for CSP, and it's been pretty much a part of my life ever since I had any memories. This is going to sound very young boy like, but my first memory of the surrogacy was getting a present from the intended father because he actually worked for a tech company, and so I got a video game out of the deal. And I remember Christmas Day opening this present from the intended father, and it was like that was the first concrete memory I have that my mom was going through this process. I have much more memory of the second time she did it because I was older. But for the very first time, I remember once meeting the family. I remember my mom being pregnant. I remember being able to see her pregnant. And she and her dad did their best to explain it to me, and I understood the concept. I remember understanding that she's having this baby and she's having it for somebody else and she's doing it to help, and it was a great thing. But I don't remember a lot of conscious thought about it. Second time around, though, I am very clear with how everything happened. We had a great relationship with that family as well. It ended up being twins. And my sister was old enough at that point, too, to understand it. Still, at this point, we get pictures and stuff. It's really weird to think of now, but the oldest, or the son that was born from that first surrogacy journey has now graduated college. Because I don't feel like an old person at all, but it's weird to think that I was there through this whole pregnancy when I was a little kid, and now this dude's out of college. But he was a great athlete, so it was fun watching him go to college and succeed in sports and that kind of thing. No, I never did. And I think because my mom did such a good job of explaining the process, even at that young age, I was like, these are not my brother and not my sisters. It's, this is the other families. And this is my mom. I'm trying to remember how she explained it, but essentially she was just borrowing them until they were ready to come out, something along those lines. I don't know if was a special case, but I think I just completely understood that this was not my mom's baby, and so therefore I was not related to it. And my mom did a great job of explaining that. But it was like, okay, when the baby came out, we got to say hi to the baby, and then it was going to go live with his real parents. And there was really nothing beyond that. It was not something that I struggled with at all. And with the second one, we visited them quite a bit, but it was the same thing. And as being older, I guess it was even less of a thought in my head. These girls are just not my sisters, they're family friends. And my mom was just carrying them because the other mom was unable to. And now it's totally normal. They live on the other side of the country, and they're now in college too, and it's just nuts. Well, I originally had a completely different career than law. I worked on boats in Alaska. And when I started to want to settle down and I wanted to get married and have a family of my own, that's not really a career that's conducive because I'm away all the time. And I had always kind of thought it would be fun to be a lawyer. A Few Good Men was the movie that I was like, that's what I want to be, because I was in the Navy, right? And so that looked like a lot of fun to me. And then I went to law school, and pretty much right from the get-go, I was interested in family law, which is divorce, child custody, that sort of thing. So not a whole lot of fun, but that language, the court language, is all the same. It's the same forms, it's the same courtrooms, the same judges. And so it was kind of a natural progression. And then when my son was born, he had some health issues of his own. So in order to be a little more flexible and spend more time at home, I went out on my own and started my own firm. And at that point, that was the first time I ever had the freedom to explore what type of law I really wanted to do. And I knew that there was a legal aspect to surrogacy, but I didn't know a whole lot about it way back at that time. And so I was talking to my mom, and she said, "Oh, well, we work with lawyers all the time." And I said, "Really? Why don't I learn more about this? What's it entail?" And that started a process of learning from attorneys that had been doing it for a long time. And I saw that I was able to understand the process so easily because I had already been doing it for so long with family law. And it was a nice change because everybody is happy in surrogacy. So I go from doing divorces, which are sad, I still do, but it's a nice balance now with people that are overjoyed and giving this great gift, and I get to talk directly with the surrogates and spend hours on the phone with them. And it's so rewarding, and I love it. It's the best part of my day. Having a kid and having another one on the way and knowing what it's like to be a parent and knowing what the IPs or the couples are going through, expecting this to happen and looking forward to this and having many of them been through a lot of struggles to get to this point. I have an appreciation for that. For the surrogates that have their own kids and they're doing it all over again and going through everything that entails, and having had a wife go through 2 pregnancies, it's not always easy. And still, they're subjecting themselves to that in order to give this gift. It tugs at the heartstrings quite a bit, and in a good way. And it's a lot of fun to watch and be a part of now. We went to visit the family, and they lived outside of Philadelphia, and they were well off. And not that I grew up I grew up very comfortably, but they had this very large house in a wealthy part of the suburbs, and it was very old because it was on the East Coast, and I grew up out here where everything is brand new and very cookie cutter. And so we drove onto this estate, and everything was stone, and there was, I don't even know, like 10 bedrooms or something like that. And I remember thinking that it was a castle and that my mom was having a baby for like a king or something like that. And I mean, it's silly to look back on it now, but that was my thought as we pulled into this circular driveway, and it was a whole new experience for me. And I know it has nothing to do with the journey itself, but that's the kind of memory that sticks with you when you're a little kid. I think with my perspective, having had a mother who was a surrogate, I think the emphasis that I would put on it is to explain to them fully. And even as young as I was able to grasp it. You don't necessarily have to go into the medical stuff or why their mom can't have a baby, that sort of thing. But I think what really worked for me was the explanation that I'm borrowing these babies to help get them ready to go back to their parents. And it's not my baby, it's not your sister or your brother, but they need our help, and so we're helping, and then when we're done helping, they're going to go home and have their own lives, and we're just doing this to help out our friends, basically. And I think with those terms, a kid will pick up on it. I certainly did. I know my sister did, and I think there wouldn't be any issues with that. I would say it did, because I remember, not so much when I was a little kid, but in my teenage years, explaining the situation to my friends, and it would come up for whatever reason. I would say, "Oh, my mom was a surrogate," and not many of kids our age had heard of such a thing. And I got to explain what it was, and everybody always thought it was the coolest thing. And me telling that story, every now and again, it just reminded me like, oh, hey, there was this great thing that my mom did, and our family was able to help out so much. And so I think that helped because I was reminded of every now and then just explaining the story. So my wife was an egg donor. This was back before we were married, but we were seriously dating. And, through my mom and knowing the whole process that my mom went through, my wife heard about egg donation, and she thought that would be something really great to do. She hadn't had her own kid. We weren't married, so surrogacy was not even a question. But egg donation was something that she was more than able to do. So she did it through EDI, and she went through the whole process, and this was my first hands-on experience with the medical side of things. So she did the stimulating medication and the calendar and the screening and all that stuff. So the stuff that happened with my mom when I was way too young to pay attention, now happened in my adult life. And I remember it was really exciting because we got to go through the matching process, and we got to talk to the couple. And this was a foreign couple, and they were from Norway, and we visited with them, and it was a lot of fun going through the process to get it started. And then when she actually did the donation, I got to help with the injections until she stopped being scared and was able to do it herself. And then we did the extraction. Everything went great. It was an awesome process. And that couple that we donated for, or she donated for, has now used CSP to go through 3 journeys of their own, and now have, I believe, 4 kids. Once was twins. And our relationship with them is fantastic because their surrogates have been in California. Every time they come back, they try to come and see us. And so one time we actually had dinner with my wife's couple that she donated eggs for at my mom's house, who was a case coordinator for CSP. So it was like this big CSP reunion for everybody in my family, and it was a lot of fun.